Hello, this is the TradeSight Stocks and Futures Market Preview and U.S. Economic Data Roadmap for the week beginning Monday, the 14th of October, 2013, and then Friday, the 18th. Charts, as usual, brought to you by eSignal 11. Let's look at the S&P 500 daily chart. Had a decline for several weeks leading into this government shutdown slash debt limit ceiling debate, and gapped up on Thursday, climbed higher, and pushed a little higher Friday on what appeared to be both sides finally coming to the table, potentially to resolve this fairly soon, which is what the markets need to see. That's already put us back near highs. We didn't even, as I said last night, we didn't even get down to this static trend line. So from a technical perspective, this certainly wasn't a big damage to the markets. Obviously, it's not over yet. Obviously, you need to figure out a way to get things through the Republican side of the House, which is what's holding it up. But if they can get something done that the markets find appeasing, then we could very well be at new highs again here fairly soon. Here's the NASDAQ 100, the NDX, obviously also close to making new highs again. And love to come into that time of year where we get a nice trading run after bottoming out in September, October. And then the next 6 months are usually the great trading part of the year. We'd really like to get a running start on that if they could just get this resolved. Here's the SOX, nice base for breakout here. If we can get going, and the biotechs, which tend to lead the market, they got a little more negative when the research funding got cut off during the government shutdown, but the talk of obviously restoring that has salvaged the biotechs for now as well. Oil tried to dip under 100 and couldn't quite get there on Friday, but we are of course heading out of the time of year where oil tends to peak in terms of pricing. And then we'll also take a look here at gold, and the gold futures breaking the new lows from the last 2 months or so there. Let's also glance at some of the key stocks we like to trade. Here's Google getting a bounce off of 6-month lows or 5-month lows on Thursday and Friday when word came that deals might be getting close. So Google's been in a tight range. They've got some product announcements coming. Don't be surprised to see them break out during that and run towards 1,000 finally. Apple holding up as well. New iPad probably coming later this month. Amazon did get pulled back a little bit earlier this week, but definitely got a bounce on Thursday and Friday with the rest of the market. Tesla had some bad news when one of their cars lit on fire during the week, but it seems to have recovered as well. We also follow Netflix, another stock we trade pretty religiously. You can see the 13 sell signal right at the top on Netflix caused it to roll over, and then it too bounced a bit following the announcement on Thursday. So those are some of the key stocks that we like to trade. We had a nice trading week despite this. I wouldn't say there were a ton of ideas, but the ideas we had certainly worked out well. We made some good money on Friday on PLCE short, even though that was against market direction at the time. Also had a nice winner in Google. So it's been there, even if it hasn't been as many as we usually would like to see. But you got to figure if they can get this resolved, we're going to be entering a real great time for the markets, and we have seen some better volume because of what's going on. All right, so let's get to what's coming. Oh, actually, let's start with the look at the futures from this week, just so we can see what the market did. So here's Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday. These are 10-minute bars, just so they fit on the screen like this. So we had a little gap down on Monday. Never filled that gap until later in the week. Headed lower, lower Tuesday, flatlined on Wednesday. Then we got our gap up on Thursday. That's what we call a gap and go day. Those are hard days to trade because you gap above all the technical levels. Futures are tough to trade. Stocks are tough to trade. And then Friday, open flat and headed higher. So we end up gaining for the week on the S&P about 20 points, which is nothing to sneeze at. And in terms of range, we had about 60 points of range. So that's not bad either. Here's a look at the NASDAQ side. NASDAQ side, amazingly, closed down a couple points for the week. It did have some good range, about 80 points, 90 points even, but gap down Monday. Never filled that gap. So Friday's close from the prior week. We've not touched that price yet. And then, of course, like the rest of the market, gapped up big on Thursday and kept going. Opened flat on Friday and kept going. So we still have a gap to fill here. Keep in mind this gap may lock out the bears, the gap from Thursday morning. If they get a deal done, there's going to be anybody who was short is squeezed out because of this big price gap right here. So that's going to be interesting to watch. All right, let's take a look at the economic data that's due out this week. Let's discuss everything that's coming out this week. Number one, Monday is a bank holiday. for Columbus Day. So we will not have the banks open. This is one of those unusual holidays where stocks are open, but the banks aren't. Basically, typically means stock market is completely dead, almost untradeable. But with everything going on in the government, it's possible if a deal is struck that we will get some excitement. So we'll be here watching. But obviously, without the banks open, all the banks trading and all that type of stuff, usually the stock market trades, about 1.1 billion shares on a day like today on Monday. So we'll see what happens there. Tuesday, Empire manufacturing data, not a big deal. Wednesday, we've got our CPI. It's one of our big three each month. Net long-term tick flows, Fed beige book, initial and continuing jobless claims. On Thursday, housing starts building permits, industrial production and capacity utilization, and then with Philly Fed, natty gas, crude oil inventories, and we end on Friday with leading indicators. So that's a lot of data coming out this week. But the other thing to focus on, separate from that CPI number on Wednesday, is that this is the beginning of core earnings. So we've got the 8 days of core earnings for Q3 quarter, starting on Tuesday with Intel, and then about 80% of companies will report between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday the following week, with Microsoft closing it out, along with a lot of other names, a week from Thursday. So we're in the middle of all this. We're going to get some guidance from companies about what they're seeing in the economy heading into the holiday season. Obviously, you don't want to squash holiday sales with this government shutdown, because that could hurt across the board. So we'll see how that goes. But that's what we'll be focusing on this week. And we will be in the trading lab as usual and making our picks in the report in Messenger. Happy to see you in the room and help you trade profitably. Have a great weekend.